Okay, so you know how sometimes you hear these stories about neighborhood revitalization projects and they sound like a dream come true?
Right, like, oh, they're going to fix everything up, bring in new businesses, make the whole area better.
Exactly. But then you dig a little deeper and you realize there's often a much messier reality hidden beneath the surface. And that's what we're diving into today.
We're talking about those hidden costs, the construction nightmares, and the communities who are often left feeling like their voices aren't being heard.
Yeah, and to illustrate just how complicated these situations can get, we're taking a deep dive into what went down in Baltimore's Station East neighborhood.
We've got a treasure trove of meeting notes and cost estimates here, giving us a real behind-the-scenes look at how this whole thing unfolded.
And trust me, it's a wild ride. So picture this. It's July 31, 2019. We're dropped right into a meeting, and the tension is palpable.
Hmm.
You've got the Station East residents on one side, the neighborhood association acting as the developer, that's HEBCA for short, on the other. And then there's this big-time investor named Ted Rouse.
And Rouse, he's got this grand vision, right? Talking about revitalizing the entire area, attracting new homeowners, breathing life back into a neighborhood that's been struggling with vacant properties for years. He keeps hammering home this idea that everyone needs to be on the same page.
Yeah, you could practically hear the inspirational music swelling in the background. But here's the thing. The residents in attendance, they're starting to paint a very different picture.
One where those freshly painted facades can't quite hide the cracks that are starting to show.
And we're not just talking about minor cosmetic issues here. We're talking leaky basements, damaged roofs, even reports of animal infestations.
It's like that moment when you buy a used car and you're like, oh, this is great. And then a week later, everything starts falling apart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when the residents actually sat down and calculated the estimated repair costs across just a handful of these homes, get ready for it. Over $470,000.
Wow. That's a staggering figure.
Right. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And it's
Yeah.
not like these residents were just, sitting back and hoping for the best. They were fired up and ready to take action.
Yeah, and you see this really interesting shift in the meeting notes from just airing grievances to actually taking concrete steps. Like they brought in their own licensed home
Oh,
inspectors
wow.
instead of relying on the ones chosen by, HEBCAC or
So
Rouse.
they're like, we're not taking anyone's word for it anymore. We need our own independent assessment of what's going on here.
Exactly. They wanted an objective record of the damages, the necessary repairs, evidence.
Smart move.
And that's such a crucial step in these situations, holding developers accountable.
Absolutely. But they didn't stop there, did they?
No, they didn't. They took it even further. They entered mediation with the state attorney general's office.
Grow. Okay, so we're talking like bringing in the big guns now.
Right. Going up against a powerful developer, a big-time investor, with the weight of the state behind them.
That's a ballsy move.
And it speaks volumes about the power of collective action, They recognize that their individual voices might not carry enough weight, so they banded together.
Strength in numbers.
Exactly. And you can feel the tension ratcheting up in these meeting notes, right?
Oh, yeah. There's this palpable sense of mistrust. Like even something as simple as agreeing to an independent home inspection, it becomes this huge point of contention.
Which brings us to, I think, a really critical point about these revitalization projects. That building trust, fostering open communication from the very beginning, it's essential.
Yeah, because once that sense of trust is broken, it's incredibly difficult to get it back.
Right. And unfortunately, this whole situation in Station East, it's not unique, We see the same kind of dynamic playing out in neighborhoods across the country.
Yeah. It really makes you think about the bigger picture here. How do we balance this need for investment for renewal with the rights and the well-being of the people who actually live in these communities?
Exactly. Because
Yeah.
it's not just about bricks and mortar, right? We're talking about people's homes, their lives, their sense of belonging.
It makes you wonder, are there examples where revitalization has actually worked for everyone involved, where it's been done right? Well, you know what they
Wow.
say, right? It's always darkest before the dawn.
Oh, is that how it goes? I thought it was, never mind.
But seriously, there are some glimmers of hope out there.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever heard of the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative? This was in Boston.
I think so, vaguely. It rings a bell.
Yeah, well, they faced a lot of the same issues. Disinvestment, rundown housing, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
But get this, they decided to take a totally different approach. They said, we're not going to wait around for some outside developer to come in and save us. we're going to do this ourselves.
Wow, that's ambitious.
Right. And this really put an emphasis on resident ownership, like
Yeah.
literally giving the community control over the land and the development process.
So it was like a ground up kind of thing.
Exactly. It wasn't easy by any means, but they actually managed to turn things around. They built affordable housing, created parks, community centers, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
And they became this national model for how to do equitable development right.
That's amazing. See, now that's what I like to hear.
Right. That's like a breath of fresh air. So, I mean, what can we take away from all of this, right? We've seen how these revitalization projects can go horribly wrong, but then we also have examples like Dudley Street that give us hope.
For sure. It's like a good reminder that there are different ways of approaching these things.
Totally. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is like the importance of being informed, being engaged in what's happening in our own backyards.
Because these issues, they impact all of us, whether we realize it or not.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, reading every single meeting agenda or anything. It's about asking those tough questions, holding developers accountable, demanding transparency.
And making sure that everyone's voice is heard, especially those who are often overlooked or marginalized.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's about creating communities where everyone can thrive, not just a select few.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So let's keep the conversation going. What are some ways that you think we can all work towards more equitable and sustainable development in our own communities?
Now that is something worth thinking about.
It sure is. And on that note, we're going to wrap things up for today. But as always, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been real.